The knock came just after sunset, sharp enough to cut through the hum of my apartment. When I opened the door, I froze. My mom, who'd walked out when I was 9, stood there smiling, like she'd never missed a thing. Beside her slouched my half-brother, Caleb, thumbs tapping his phone, sneakers already on my welcome mat. "I heard how much you make now," she said, eyes sweeping the room. "Family helps family," Caleb smirked. 60 grand for tuition, 3,000 a month. You can handle that." My pulse thudded in my ears. I didn't argue. I just knew this wasn't a visit. It was a raid. I grew up in a small Ohio town where winters felt longer than they should, and fryer oil clung to my father's clothes every night. My dad, David Foster, ran a tiny diner on the edge of Main Street. It wasn't fancy. 3 red booths, a flickering neon sign, and a coffee pot that never rested, but it kept us going. When Mom left, the diner became our lifeline. She walked out when I was 9. No warning, no goodbye. Just the slam of a car door and a suitcase wobbling down the front steps. Dad told me later she'd met someone who promised a better life. For years, I lay awake wondering if better meant a life without me. Dad tried to fill both roles, but he was stretched thin. Every morning at 5, he'd unlock the diner and start the grill. By the time I came home from school, he smelled like bacon grease and black coffee, his fingers nicked from the slicer. Still, no matter how tired, he'd sit across from me at our wobbly kitchen table and ask, "How was math club today?" Sometimes he'd doze mid-sentence and I'd whisper, "It was good, Dad." Money was always tight. The lights flickered whenever the heater kicked in. There were weeks when the fridge held little more than milk and half a jar of jam. I started babysitting at 12, stacking shelves at a corner store by 14, and cleaning houses by 15. Every dollar went to rent, groceries, or gas for Dad's rusted pickup. School became my escape hatch. Numbers made sense when nothing else did. I joined math club, entered competitions, and stayed late to tutor other students. When teachers talked about college, I listened like it was a secret world I might break into. At 17, I earned a full scholarship for data analytics at a state university. The night the acceptance letter came, Dad cried at the diner's counter, wiping his eyes with a dish towel. "You're getting out," he said, voice shaking. "You're going to make something bigger than this." College was hard, but it was mine. Tuition was covered, but food, rent, and books weren't. I worked mornings as a waitress, afternoons at a law office, and nights cleaning offices. My schedule was a blur of bus rides, cheap instant noodles, and lectures. I came home exhausted, hands smelling of disinfectant. But I felt free. I was building something on my own terms. By graduation, I had a degree, a job offer, and a quiet fire inside me. I moved to Orlando for a data analyst position at a growing tech company. The first paycheck felt surreal, more than my dad ever made in a month. I sent him $500 right away, then more whenever I could. He hated taking it, said I'd earned it for myself, but I wanted him to rest, even if just a little. Years passed. Promotions came. I bought a sleek apartment downtown, high ceilings, windows that showed the city lights I used to dream about. Coworkers became my second family. Lunches with Nina from accounting, volunteering with Kara on weekends, coffee runs with Ryan, the neighbor who always carried 2 mugs. Still, there were nights I opened a drawer filled with old birthday cards from Mom. Every single one. "Happy birthday. Hope you're doing okay." No love. No warmth. Just proof she existed somewhere, living a life that didn't include me. I'd stare at those cards and wonder why I wasn't enough for her to stay. So when she reappeared on that autumn evening, smiling like nothing had happened, it felt like the ground shifted beneath me. I'd built everything from scratch, career, peace, purpose, and now the ghost of my past had found my address. The day after that knock, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mom's smile and Caleb's smirk bleeding into the glow of my doorway. Part of me wanted to believe she'd come to apologize, to bridge the 23-year canyon between us. But the way she'd said family helps family played in my head like a taunt, not a plea. By morning, she texted, "Lunch, my treat. There's so much to catch up on." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Curiosity won over instinct. Maybe I needed to hear her out once, to close the book properly. We met at a crowded cafe near my office. The smell of espresso hung heavy. I spotted them immediately. Mom in a floral blouse that looked too new for someone barely getting by. Caleb slouched beside her with AirPods in, scrolling his phone. She stood when I arrived. "Julia, honey, you look amazing." Her hug was stiff, perfumed, and foreign. She started with small talk. Traffic, weather, my hair. Then in a practiced sigh, she shifted. "You know your father made it impossible for me to stay in touch," she said. "He shut me out after the divorce." "That's not true," I said quietly. "He begged you to call." "I was there." She looked wounded, then waved it off. "I did what I could." "I was struggling too, Julia. Life hasn't been easy." Caleb finally looked up. "We've had it rough," he said, voice dripping sarcasm. "Dorms, cheap cars. It's not fun." He laughed like it was a joke. Then she asked for money. "Caleb's tuition is $60,000. We just need a little help getting started. Maybe $3,000 a month until he's settled." I set my coffee down slowly. $3,000 a month?" I said. Her eyes shone as if she were asking me to lend sugar, not a small fortune. "You're doing so well, sweetheart. You make more than you need." How did she even know what I made? She froze for half a second, then recovered. "People talk. Old friends, you know." I realized she'd done more than hear things. My father's voice echoed, "Keep your accounts private, Jules. Some people only see what they can take." Caleb leaned forward, smirking. "You're acting like we're strangers." "You're our family. You should want to help." I swallowed. "I am family, but that doesn't mean I'm a bank." Mom's smile faltered. "You don't have to be cold, Julia. We came not out of greed, but because we trust you." There it was. Manipulation wrapped in sentiment. I'd seen it before in customers trying to guilt Dad into free meals. "I'll think about it," I said, and pushed my chair back. Caleb rolled his eyes. "Yeah, sure you will." Mom's voice sharpened, almost scolding. "Don't forget who raised you." That stung. I grabbed my bag. "Dad raised me," I said, and walked out before my voice could break. Outside, the Florida sun felt too bright. I stood on the sidewalk trembling, realizing lunch hadn't been about reconnection at all. It was reconnaissance. And deep down, I knew they'd be back. 2 nights later, they showed up again. No call, no warning, another sharp knock. I hesitated, praying it was a delivery. It wasn't. Mom brushed past me into my apartment. Caleb dropping onto my couch, sneakers on the rug, scrolling his phone. "We were in the neighborhood," she lied, glancing around, lingering on the framed degrees and the city view. "Then stop asking for money," I said. Her smile tightened. "Julia, please. You have so much, and Caleb's trying to build a future. You can't understand scraping by." "I do understand," I said. "I lived it." Something snapped. Her eyes flicked to my desk. Caleb followed her gaze. "Stop," I said too late. He was already there, fingers on my laptop touchpad. My financial dashboard glowed on the screen, open. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Just checking how rich you are," he said with a smirk. Mom slid into syrupy charm. "We're family, Julia. Why hide anything?" I slammed the laptop shut so hard the sound echoed. "You went through my things," I said. "You hacked Dad's email to find out where I work. You broke into my life again." Her face paled. "Don't blame me for your father's failures," she snapped. "I had to know you weren't wasting your potential," Caleb snorted. "He's a loser anyway. You're better off without him." The room blurred. My heartbeat roared. "Get out," I said, voice steady. "Excuse me?" Mom blinked. "Get out before I call the police." They hesitated, then left. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room, heavy, electric. For the first time, it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like freedom, sharpened into resolve. I didn't cry that night. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the laptop they'd touched. The anger turned cold and razor-sharp. I opened my laptop and traced what they'd done. My work as a data analyst trained me to notice patterns, irregular logins, timestamps, footprints people thought they'd erased. Within minutes, I found a forwarded email from my father's account to Mom's. The subject line was my full name. Attached was a payroll summary I'd sent Dad months earlier when helping him file taxes. The forwarding had happened 2 weeks earlier, from an IP address I didn't recognize. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. I printed everything, organized it into a folder, labeled it evidence. Then I called Dad. He picked up after the second ring, voice gravelly from years of coffee and late nights. "Hey, kiddo. Everything okay, Dad?" I asked. "Did you send Mom my salary info?" "No, I'd never," he said. Then realization dawned. She's been in my email, hasn't she? I could hear him exhale, tired and sad. That tightness in my chest eased a little. "I'm handling it," I said. "I just needed you to know." The next morning, I called Mark Sullivan, a lawyer a coworker recommended. His voice was calm, efficient. I told him everything: hacked email, their visits, the laptop. "You have proof," he said. "Then we'll file for a restraining order, and you'll want to inform your bank's fraud department." Those words felt like breathing clean air. Someone finally understood. This wasn't family drama. It was violation. By that afternoon, I'd changed every password, set up 2-factor authentication on everything, and ordered new security locks for my door. The next morning, I went to court. I remember the sterile smell of the hallway, the low murmur of other cases, the clerk stamping papers. Thump. That sound felt final. For the first time, I wasn't the scared kid watching her mother drive away. I was the adult drawing a line she couldn't cross again. Days later, my phone buzzed with a bank alert. Unusual transfer attempt. $10,000 from savings. Declined. I stared, then laughed quietly. She'd tried again and failed. I forwarded the notice to Mark. He replied within minutes. They'd face consequences if they tried again. The satisfaction wasn't vengeful. It was measured, calm, like closing a book that had been left open too long. A week later, I went to dinner at Dad's diner, renovated now, clean and bright after I helped pay off debts. The smell of grilled onions and fresh coffee hit me the second I walked in. He looked up from the counter and smiled. "You look lighter," he said. "I am," I told him. And I meant it. That night back in Orlando, I watched the city lights pulse below my window. For the first time in years, I felt completely safe. My mother had taken enough. My childhood, my trust, my peace. But she wouldn't take my future. So I poured a glass of water, opened my laptop, and started building something new. A small charity fund I dreamed about for years. I named it the Foster Fund, for kids raised by one parent, fighting their way up. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. My quiet way of saying you can't take from me anymore. A year passed before I heard her name again. By then, the restraining order was granted, and my life had rearranged itself around peace. Mornings were quiet, coffee brewing, emails waiting, sunlight spilling across the floor instead of anxiety. One evening, Dad called. "You'll never guess who reached out," he said, voice careful. "Your Aunt Ruth." I smiled. Haven't heard from her in years. She wanted to talk about Mom. Aunt Ruth told me Marie burned every bridge she'd ever had. She borrowed from friends, lied about me, said I refused to help. They moved out of town. No one knows where. I didn't feel triumph, just a strange stillness. "I hope she finds whatever she's looking for," I said quietly. Ruth sighed. "You sound like your father." After that, I let the silence close. I didn't need updates or apologies. What mattered was that her chaos could no longer reach me. Therapy helped me name something I'd carried forever. The guilt for surviving was heavier than her betrayal. Dr. Brooks told me, "You can't heal in the same story that broke you." I carried that sentence like a mantra. Then I wrote a new one. The Foster Fund became official within months. Small scholarships for kids from single-parent homes, mentorship programs, tutoring nights. Kara helped design outreach. Ryan organized local sponsors. The first time I signed a grant check, I thought of the diner lights flickering in Ohio, and of Dad flipping pancakes to keep the electricity on. The cycle ended there. Sometimes I still catch myself waiting for another knock on the door. It never comes. The silence now means safety, not threat. Last Thanksgiving, Dad came to Orlando for dinner. We cooked together, turkey, mashed potatoes, laughter echoing through the apartment. He raised his glass and said, "You did good, kiddo." I looked around the table, friends, warmth, peace, and realized he was right. I hadn't just survived. I'd rebuilt something better. On the rooftop terrace that night, overlooking Orlando's skyline, I watched the city hum below, life and second chances. The foster fund sign shimmered like closure made visible. I thought of the girl I used to be, waiting by the diner window, hoping her mother would come back down that street. She never did. But maybe that was the point, because losing her forced me to find myself. I raised my glass and whispered, "This is family." Then I turned to you. If you've ever had to draw a line to protect your peace, you're not alone. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when everything falls apart. If this story hit close to home, hit like. Share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more real stories like mine. Your voice matters. Tell me yours in the comments.